السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله على إحسانه وشكر له على تفضله وامتنانه، ولا إله إلا الله تعظيما لشأنه، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله داعي إلى رضوانه وعلى آله وأصحابه وإخوانه. أما بعد. إخواني في الله, today will be our last lecture for the month of Ramadan, inshallah. We shall be having a lecture regarding one of the great imams of our Islamic history. And thereafter, Ikhwani Fillah, if there are any questions, you can send your questions and we'll try answering them, inshallah. We'll have an open Q&A session, whereby if you have any question, you can send your questions, inshallah. Take my number in case you have a question, 0707 141400. 0707, no one is writing the number, 141400. In case you have any questions, don't worry, even if it is the most foolish of questions or you think it's a stupid question, just ask. We'll try our best to answer if we're able to answer. The number is 0707 141400. You can send your questions via WhatsApp or via SMS, or the people watching on TV also live, they can send. Ikhwani Fillah, one of the great imams in our Islamic history is a man called Muhammad ibn Ismail, ibn Ibrahim, ibn Mughira, ibn Bardizbah al-Juhfi rahimahullah mawlahum. This great imam was born in the year 194 of the Hijri calendar. This imam, Ikhwani Fillah, has been given such a high position by the Muslims that they say the second most authentic book after the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, after the Quran, is the book compiled by this imam, Imam Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari rahimahullah. This man, Ikhwani Fillah, no day passes that there's a Muslim alive on this earth except they mention قال رواه هذا البخاري, هذا حديث رواه البخاري. His father, Ikhwani Fillah, Ismail ibn Ibrahim, he was a student of Imam Malik, of Hammad ibn Zayd, and also he saw the Imam Abdullah Mubarak al-Marwazi. But his father died very young. So the Imam was born as an orphan. And this is one amazing thing about Islamic history. Most of the greats in Islamic history were orphans. Who is the first orphan that you all know? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was an orphan. You look at the Imams, Imam Shafi'i was an orphan. You look at Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, many of the Imams of Islamic history, Imam Malik, they're all orphans. So this Imam was a yatim. Then he loses his eyes. Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari, he loses his eyes, he becomes blind when he's but a child. So the mother every day wakes up and makes tahajjud and prays to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She cries to Allah, "Oh Allah, return the eyes of Muhammad Ismail. Oh Allah, return the eyes of my son." She cries for a very long time in dua, that one day she sees in a dream the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. The Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam says to the mother of Bukhari, "Ya hadihi, laqad radda Allahu basara ibnaki bikathrati du'aiki." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has returned the eyesight of your child because of the immense numbers of times you are crying towards him. So Imam Bukhari's eyes, they were returned back. So he started seeking knowledge, Ikhwani Fillah. And this Imam was an ayah min ayatillah. One of the scholars, he says, this is one of the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal, this great Imam. He memorized the Quran, Ikhwani Fillah, when he was about 10 years of age. Then he started memorizing the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. One day as he was born in a place, Uzbekistan. Bukhara is a city in Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan is in the middle of Asia. So he is from Uzbekistan. He is Uzbeki, he is Farisi, he is Persian. So he's about 11. One of his sheikhs, Al-Wahidi, narrates a hadith. He says, قال عن أبي زبير عن إبراهيم النقعي عن فلان عن فلان عن جابر. He says عن جابر. So Imam Bukhari, 11 years of age, he says, "Oh my sheikh, you've made a mistake with that hadith." The sheikh says, "Young man, young boy, you're being indisciplined." He says, "No sheikh, you have said Abu Zubair, it's not Abu Zubair." So the boy insists. The sheikh says, "Let me go check my book." He goes, checks his book and says, "Ya walad, kayfa qult, oh my son, how did you say the correct way? Oh my sheikh, it's Zubair ibn Adi ibn Ibrahim, not Abu Zubair. Abu Zubair did not narrate any hadith from Ibrahim Naqa'i. He said, huwa kama qulta. It is as if you had mentioned." So he was known from very early age with his great hifth. When he was only 16 years of age, he had memorized the great books of Waqi' ibn Jarrah, the books of Abdullah ibn Mubarak al-Marwazi rahimahullah. Then he started setting out to seek the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. As I mentioned previously, Ikhwani Fillah, you cannot be a scholar of Islam during those days especially, except that you have to travel to seek hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ. Why do you need to seek the hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ? You have memorized the Quran in your city. Every city you can memorize the full Quran, that's easy. But when it comes to the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, there's no many books compiled. Number one, there are no books at that time. And number two, the Sahaba, they went for jihad. They went to spread Islam all over the world. So you find Sahaba, they died and the knowledge was left in a city like Ray, or Maru, or Harrat, or Balkh, or Baghdad, or Kufa. So they had to travel to all these cities of the world to seek the knowledge of this Sahaba and this Tabi'een who was spread all over this world. So the Imam, at the age of 18, they go for Hajj with the mother. They come to Hajj, they perform the Hajj, says, Mom, leave me. I want to stay in Mecca and study under the sheikhs of Mecca. So the mother leaves the Imam in Mecca, he studies under the sheikh of Mecca, then he decides to go to Medina. Then in Medina, next to the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, he writes a book, one of his very first books, At-Tarikh al-Kabir, the history of the narrators of hadiths. And Ikhwani fillah, this is one of the most amazing knowledge in Islam. The scholars will tell you, everyone in this mosque, they are fewer than the narrators of hadith. The narrators of hadith are in the tens of thousands. But someone like Bukhari will tell you, you know someone called Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he was born in the city of this, he died here, he studied under these sheikhs, on this side his students. They know everyone's year of birth, year of death, which is most important, and the scholars they studied under, and the scholars who studied under them. So if you come later on with the hadith and say, I am a student of Imam Ahmad, he says, no, I have, from my memory, I know all the students. So he decided to compile this book, At-Tarikh al-Kabir, where he writes the names of the people who have narrated hadiths of Prophet ﷺ. You know, the Prophet ﷺ speaks to his Sahaba. And his Sahaba, they speak to the next generation, the Tabi'een. The Tabi'een, the Atba' Tabi'een. So this is something that until the knowledge has reached us, it had a chain of narration. So all these people who have narrated these hadiths, who are they? Where were they born? What are their families? Were they truthful people? Were they not truthful? Were they strong in their memory? Were they not strong? What was their weaknesses? Did they become changed when they grew up? Did they have Alzheimer's or they lost their memory? All this is compiled. When Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, one of the sheikhs of Bukhari, saw this book, he went to the Amir of his city and says, Oh Amir, let me show you sihr today. Today I want to show you black magic. Look at this knowledge. How can a person compile such knowledge from his offhead? And he compiled this next to the grave of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was 18 years of age. This Imam, his hifth was amazing. He had amazing memory. He'll open a book just once, Imam Bukhari, and he'll memorize that book just the first time he opens it. One time when he was studying, for 16 consecutive days, they are studying under a sheikh. And the sheikh has recited every single day at least 1,000 hadiths. And this is not only hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. No, this hadith, رواه حميدي and Yahya ibn Ibrahim al-Ansari, and Mughira, and so on and so forth, until Umar ibn al-Khattab, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, with an entire chain of narration. A hadith is mentioned by the chain and the text. The chain and the text. So the sheikh, for 16 days, is narrating and dictating for them the hadiths. But this Bukhari is just seated there, looking at the sheikh. He's not writing any notes. The students wonder, Oh Bukhari, what's wrong with you? You're wasting your life. You are a student of knowledge, and for 16 days you don't even carry a pen. You don't even carry a piece of paper and write upon. What are you doing? Says, bring your books, and I will recite for you every single hadith that was mentioned. So they bring their books, all of them, and rahimahullah, he starts reciting the hadiths of the sheikhs. So once he has gotten like 50, 100 correct, people are wondering, this guy is mu'jiza. This is one of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he continues reciting, Khanifillah, that they start correcting their book based on the hifth of the sheikh. They were writing, dictating, sometimes they made a mistake in their writing. But the hifth, the memorization of Bukhari was completely correct. So they started correcting the book based on the hifth. Some of the scholars, Muhammad ibn Muslim al-Baykandi, one of his sheikhs, he says, Oh Bukhari, the sheikh says, Oh Bukhari, look at my books. Whatever errors you find in my books, tell me so that I can correct them. And he's only 20 or 30 years of age. One day, Khanifillah, as he was sitting in the gathering of his great sheikh, Ishaq ibn Rahawayh. Ishaq ibn Rahoya or Rahaway. The scholars of hadith pronounce it differently. They say Rahoya, the other scholars say Rahaway, because they say way is the name of shaitan. So Ishaq ibn Rahaway rahimahullah, his he's in a gathering with his students and he says the following words, just one line. He says, لو جمعتم كتابا في الصحيح النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. I wish one of you will gather the authentic narrations of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one book. He only says these words. Ishaq ibn Rahawi. Imam Bukhari says, فَوَقَعَ ذَلِكَ فِي قَلْبِي. Those words really had a great effect on me. فَشَرَعْتُ في جمع الجامع الصحيح. I started gathering the Sahih Bukhari, Al-Jami' al-Sahih, and it took me 16 years of compilation. This Sahih Bukhari that is with our hands, the most authentic book ever written by a human being, the most authentic book ever compiled by a human being, the most authentic book after the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, 16 years he took it to compile it. He says, rahimahullah, this book, it has almost 7,593 hadiths, as mentioned by Muhammad Fuad Abdul Baqi. 7,593 hadiths. He says, every single hadith that I put in this book, I prayed 2 rak'ah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every single hadith that Imam Bukhari kept in his book, he prayed a rak'ah. How many rak'ah is that? 7,593 times 2? About 15,000 rak'ah he prayed in every time for this book to come out, for this great book to come to us. So this Imam, he was known by his great memorization. He became so famous that even the scholars were saying, Imam Ahmad was saying, ما خرج من خراسان أفضل منه. He says, no one has come from the area of Khurasan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, who's better than Imam Bukhari. And this is an Imam who saw the likes of Abdullah Mubarak al-Marwazi. He saw the likes of himself. He himself is from Khurasan. But he says, ما خرجت خراسان أفضل منه. Ali ibn Madini, he says, Imam Bukhari, this is Sheikh, he says, Bukhari's ayah min ayatillah is one of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One day he comes to the city of Baghdad, and the people of Baghdad are overjoyed, they're very happy. This is the capital city of the Islamic Empire, the most powerful state in the world. He comes to Baghdad, and all the scholars, they gather around him. Then they decide to test this man. This is the most famous scholar, one of the most famous scholars of hadith in the entire world. Everyone knows him when he was still a young man. So they decide to give him an exam in front of the people, a public exam. So all the scholars, 10 of them or more, they bring hadiths. Each of them bring hadiths, but they mix up the hadiths. This hadith is for Ibn Umar, they make it Abu Huraira. Not only the Sahaba, they change the entire chain of narration. For example, an Malik, an Nafi', and Ibn Umar, an Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's a chain of narration. You have a chain of narration, Al-A'raj, Abu Huraira, and so on and so forth. So they mixed up the hadiths and the text. So they ask Bukhari, this hadith narrated by so and so and so, where the Prophet ﷺ says this and this, do you know it? Bukhari says no. Second hadith, do you know it? No. So the first sheikh finishes his 10 hadiths. All the time he's saying, I do not know this hadith, I do not know this hadith. The people are wondering. The common person does not understand what is going on. Wondering, this guy is so famous for it. Even 10 hadiths, 0%. He got 0%. The next sheikh comes. He brings 10 hadiths for Bukhari. Do you know this hadith? He says no, because they've mixed them up. The third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, the ninth, the 10th. People are wondering, why is this man famous? Why is he so famous? 100 hadiths mentioned by 10 different scholars, yet he could not even have one. He says he knows even one. After they finish, he does one of the most amazing things. He says, oh Sheikh number 1, you mentioned this and this and this and this from your hadith. No. The correct way is this and this and this. Your second hadith was this. You said this and this and this. No. The correct way is this and this and this. The scholars held their heads. They said, it is not amazing for him to memorize 100 hadiths that are authentic. What is more amazing, Khanifillah, is he memorized their errors. He memorized the mistakes all the scholars made in that sitting, and he corrected them in that sitting, and everyone understood the great virtue and the great memory this great Imam had. Are you together, Khanifillah? Another time he goes to a city of Balkh, and they tell him, give us one hadith from every scholar that you have studied from. And he studied under 1,080 hadiths of scholars, and he gives every scholar one hadith from memory, no book. No book, rahimahullah. He gives them from memory. This Imam was so famous, he was so beloved. Every night, he never leaves the Quran of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Especially in the month of Ramadan, every single day during the day, he finishes the Quran once during the day. Then he prays the Taraweeh with the Muslims. He goes home, he sleeps. He wakes up before suhoor time and he finishes a third of the Quran. Every day he finishes one khatma and a third of the Quran. So in the month of Ramadan he finishes the Quran how many times? What do I sabu? Every day he finishes one full khatma, then he finishes a third. Hence he finishes the Quran once on this side and every 3 days on this side. Are you together? So he finishes this 1 times 30 days and this 3 times 10 days, 30 days. So he finishes the Quran 40 times in the month of Ramadan, rahimahullah, and he used to pray 13 rak'ah every night. The scholars, they say, we used to go with him in journeys, and sometimes every single night as he's asleep, he'll wake up 20 times, put on the light and write a benefit. We used to stay with him, and sometimes for years, he does not eat except 3 almonds, 3 nuts. He does not have any other food. Sometimes he goes so hungry, he eats leaves. Another time, the scholars, his students of knowledge, did not find Bukhari. Where is Bukhari? He's not in the class today. They looked for him, ikhwani fillah, and he had sold most of his clothes because of hunger. He had no clothes. So they did some small contribution and they bought for him clothes. Such was this great Imam, Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari, rahimahullah. Very famous. Then one day, ikhwani fillah, he goes to the city of Naysabur, also in Khurasan. Then the great scholar of Naysabur, Muhammad ibn Yahya Dhuhli, rahimahullah, he welcomes him. The scholars, they say, أعلم الناس بحديث الزهري يحيى محمد بن يحيى ذهلي. The most knowledgeable when it comes to the hadith of Muhammad ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, one of the scholars of hadith, is this man, Muhammad ibn Yahya Dhuhli. So Muhammad ibn Yahya Dhuhli is the great scholar of the people of Naysabur. So he welcomes Imam Bukhari. Come, welcome. This is the year 250 of the Hijri calendar. A short while later, all of them are gathering in the gathering of Imam Bukhari. The sheikh, who was the sheikh of the entire city or this town, he's left with no students. So something happened to him that human beings, even scholars, sometimes it comes. Some form of jealousy entered his heart that everyone has left him and they've gone to this young student of mine, Bukhari. They've left me. Why? So some of the students or some of the evil people around wanted to create a fitna. So they went to Imam Ahmad and they said to him, ماذا تقول في خلق القرآن? What do you say about the issue of this philosophical issue that has no benefit, that the Muslims disagree completely with? The Quran is the word of Allah, it's not a creation. So they ask Imam Bukhari, what do you say about the creation of the book of Allah? He says, no, Al-Quran, Kalamullah, غير مخلوق. The Quran is not a creation, it's the word of Allah. Then they're not content, they still want to test him further. They say, what about our recitation of the Quran? Is that a creation or is it not? Here the Imam gave an answer that can be interpreted in different ways. But these people, they added the spices and salt and everything, and they started declaring that the Imam Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari has the same ideology or the same heretic view, the same bid'ah view of saying that the Quran is a creation of Allah. So they started spreading this, that all the scholars started going against him now. Amongst them, this sheikh of his, Muhammad ibn Yahya Dhuhli, he became very fierce against the people of Naysabur, telling the governor, if this man does not leave, we're going to revolt. This man has to leave this city of Naysabur. So a great fitna happened to Imam Bukhari. Everyone left him. All his students left him. He was only left with 2 students. Imam Muslim, author of the second most authentic book after Bukhari. Bukhari gets the virtue of Bukhari and also gets the thawab of Sahih Muslim because he's the sheikh of Muslim. So he's only left by Muslim al-Hajjaj al-Naysaburi and Muslim al-Warraq, his student al-Warraq. Only 2 students left. Everyone left him in Naysabur. So much so that Imam Muslim, this fitna became so great to him that he has not narrated one single hadith in his Sahih that is from the narration of Muhammad ibn Yahya Dhuhli, nor a narration of Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari. Great fitna sometimes happens even between scholars. The scholars, they say, Kalamul Aqrani tutwa wala tuqra. Sometimes people who are in the same level, the same age, you should not even read their negative opinions of each other. You just roll it and ignore it. Sometimes you find a sheikh, he talks badly about a sheikh. You keep in one ear and remove this ear. It does not benefit you at all. Sometimes you hear a businessman talking about a fellow businessman. You keep in one ear, you remove the other ear. It does not benefit. What happens sometimes, people of the same level, They have jealousy amongst themselves. They have unhealthy competition amongst themselves. And this was the unhealthy hasad that was from this Imam Muhammad bin Yahya Dhuli against Imam Bukhari. So Imam Bukhari felt very sad and he started traveling the lands. He went to a city called Samarkand, also in Uzbekistan. He started spreading the knowledge. The governor of Samarkand says, Bukhari has to come to my house and teach my children in my house. Like a Maalim Dux. He has to come to my house and teach my children. No. Imam Bukhari says, هذا علم أشرف من ذلك. This ilm, this knowledge has more honor than that. العلم يؤتى ولا يأتي. Knowledge is given, it does not come. So your child has to come and sit in my gathering here, like the rest of the other people, and benefit from my knowledge. I have no problem teaching him, but he has to come in the normal gathering. There's no specific gatherings. So the governor says, my child to say to the common people, it will never happen. And he created a fitna for Bukhari in his own town of Bukhara, and Imam Bukhari was expelled. But this man who caused this fitna, only 1 month did not pass. He was removed from his post. He was thrown in jail, and he died in jail, unknown and forgotten in history. Imam Bukhari then started traveling around the world. He went to another city next to Samarkand, expelled. He goes outside Samarkand in the year 256 of the Hijri calendar, and he raises up his hands in the month of Ramadan. And he says, Allahumma qad dhaqat bihi al-ardu bima rahubat. Oh Allah, this world has become so tiny for me. Yet it's wide, but it's become so tiny for me. This because of this fitna. Allahumma qbidni ghayru maftunin. Oh Allah, take me and keep me away from the fitna. He made this dua in the month of Ramadan, the year 256 of the Hijri calendar. Then Ikhwani Fillah, on the 1st of Shawwal, the day of Eid, Muslims have just announced it's Eid, tomorrow we're praying Eid. After Isha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took the soul of this great Imam, Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari rahimahullah, on the 1st of Shawwal, a Saturday, the year 256 of the Hijri calendar, at the age of 62 years of age. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he passed away. The scholars, they say, we went for his funeral and it was a great funeral. Imam Ahmad used to say, بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمُ الْجَنَائِزِ. Between us and you people of innovation, you people of heresy, is the janazah. You are going to see our value and our worth the day of janazah. The Muslims have not seen greater janazas like the janazah of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, like the janazah of Shaykh al-Islam Ahmad bin Taymiyyah. Also Bukhari had a big funeral. The Muslims, they say his grave was removing a lot of perfume, a lot of musk, to so nice smelling for days and days and days. This was the Imam Bukhari, one of the righteous people. He saw the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam a few days before Bukhari died. He says, oh Prophet, I see you're waiting for someone. Who are you waiting for? He says, alayhi salatu wasalam, the dream, I am waiting for Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari rahimahullah. So this Imam Ikhwani Fillah is one of the greats of our history. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised his status that he became the compiler of the most authentic book after the book of Allah. He was born in the year 194 of the Hijri calendar. On the 13th of Shawwal, he passed on the 1st of Shawwal, the year 256 of the Hijri calendar. This is a summary regarding the life of Imam Bukhari.